Imagine a case so dark, so twisted that it left the nation horrified and the police baffled. A case so sensational that it continues to haunt the world even after 75 years. This is the story of the Black Dahlia, a murder so gruesome and mysterious that it has remained unsolved for decades, sparking endless theories, investigations, and fear. Who was the beautiful young woman whose life was brutally cut short? And why did her killer leave her body mutilated and displayed for the world to find? Today, we're diving deep into the dark mystery of the Black Dahlia murder, one of the most infamous unsolved cases in American history. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories, chilling mysteries, and deep dives into the most terrifying cases from around the world. Now let's get into it. It was a quiet morning on January 15, 1947 in Leimert Park, Los Angeles. A woman named Betty Bersinger was walking with her 3-year-old daughter when she stumbled upon what she initially thought was a broken mannequin lying in the grass. But as she got closer, she realized with horror that it was no mannequin, it was a body. The body was that of a young woman, naked and bisected at the waist. Her face had been slashed from ear to ear in what is known as a Glasgow smile, and her body had been meticulously cleaned and drained of blood. She had been posed in a grotesque display, with her arms raised above her head and her lower half spread apart. The scene was something out of a nightmare, and the brutality of the crime shocked even seasoned police officers. The victim was quickly identified as 22-year-old Elizabeth Short, an aspiring actress who had moved to Los Angeles in pursuit of fame. She was later given the nickname the Black Dahlia by the press, a reference to her striking dark hair, her wardrobe of black clothing, and possibly inspired by the popular film The Blue Dahlia. Before we dive into the theories surrounding her murder, let's take a moment to understand who Elizabeth Short was. Born on July 29, 1924 in Boston, Massachusetts, Elizabeth grew up in a troubled family. Her father abandoned the family when she was young, and her relationship with her mother was strained. Like many young women of the time, Elizabeth dreamed of becoming a movie star, and in 1946, she moved to Los Angeles in hopes of breaking into the film industry. However, life in Hollywood wasn't as glamorous as she had imagined. Elizabeth struggled to find steady work and was often living a transient lifestyle, moving between friends' homes, cheap hotels, and sometimes dating men who could offer her a place to stay. Despite her challenges, Elizabeth was known for her beauty, her charm, and her striking appearance, often dressed in black, which made her stand out in the Hollywood crowd. From the moment Elizabeth's body was found, the Los Angeles Police Department launched an intensive investigation. Hundreds of police officers, detectives, and forensic experts were assigned to the case, and the LAPD interviewed thousands of potential witnesses. But despite their efforts, they were met with one dead end after another. The crime scene offered little in terms of forensic evidence. The body had been cleaned so thoroughly that investigators couldn't even recover fingerprints. The only clues they had to go on were the savage injuries inflicted on Elizabeth's body, leading detectives to believe that her killer had some medical knowledge, given the precise way she had been dissected. The media quickly seized on the case, dubbing Elizabeth the Black Dahlia and turning her murder into a nationwide sensation. Newspapers published sensational stories about Elizabeth's life, often painting her as a femme fatale or a party girl who may have been involved in dangerous situations. These stories, while mostly exaggerated, only added to the mystery and fueled public fascination with the case. Over the years, the LAPD investigated more than 150 suspects in connection with Elizabeth's murder, but no one was ever charged. Several suspects, however, stood out as more credible than others, and their stories continue to be debated to this day. One of the most popular and widely discussed suspects is Dr. George Hodel, a wealthy and influential Los Angeles physician. Hodel's son, Steve Hodel, a retired LAPD homicide detective, has written several books claiming that his father was the Black Dahlia killer. Steve's theory is based on a number of disturbing pieces of evidence, including incriminating diary entries, photos of a woman resembling Elizabeth found in his father's possession, and recordings of Dr. Hodel making suspicious statements. Perhaps the most damning evidence came in 1949, 2 years after the murder, when the LAPD conducted a secret surveillance operation on Dr. Hodel's home. During the surveillance, Hodel was recorded saying, "Supposing I did kill the Black Dahlia, they can't prove it now. They can't talk to my secretary because she's dead." While this statement is chilling, it was never enough to convict him. Another suspect was Mark Hansen, a nightclub owner who had known Elizabeth and even allowed her to stay at his home from time to time. Hansen was said to have been romantically interested in Elizabeth, but she did not reciprocate his feelings. Some investigators speculated that Hansen may have killed her out of jealousy or anger over the rejection. However, there was never enough concrete evidence to tie him to the crime. Leslie Dillon. Leslie Dillon was a bellhop and a drifter who became a suspect after he wrote a letter to the LAPD claiming to have insights into the Black Dahlia murder. Dillon provided details about the crime that seemed suspiciously accurate, but he later claimed to be researching the case for a book. While Dillon was investigated thoroughly, the police were unable to find enough evidence to arrest him. Walter Bailey was a surgeon whose daughter was a friend of Elizabeth's sister. Bailey lived close to the location where Elizabeth's body was found, and his medical expertise would have given him the knowledge needed to perform the precise dissection of her body. While Bailey was never officially named a suspect, some investigators believe his proximity to the crime and his medical background make him a viable candidate. One of the reasons the Black Dahlia case remains unsolved is the sheer volume of false confessions. Over the years, more than 500 people have confessed to the murder, many of them attention seekers hoping to gain notoriety. These false confessions clogged the investigation and wasted valuable police resources. In addition to the confessions, the media frenzy surrounding the case led to countless rumors and conspiracy theories. Some speculated that Elizabeth was involved in organized crime, while others believed that her murder was part of a larger cover-up involving the LAPD or influential people in Los Angeles. While none of these theories have been proven, they have only added to the mystery and intrigue of the case. The media played a significant role in shaping public perception of the Black Dahlia case, often sensationalizing Elizabeth Short's life and death. Headlines painted her as a mysterious, glamorous figure, feeding into the narrative of Hollywood as a city where dreams and nightmares collided. Reporters were relentless in their pursuit of the story, sometimes going so far as to meddle in the police investigation. In one particularly shocking incident, a reporter from the Los Angeles Examiner called Elizabeth's mother, Phoebe Short, claiming her daughter had won a beauty contest, only to pry details about her life before revealing the truth of her death. The level of exploitation was high, and many believe it tainted the investigation. Despite the LAPD's best efforts, the case of the Black Dahlia remains unsolved for several reasons. Forensic limitations. In 1947, forensic science was still in its infancy. Techniques like DNA testing and advanced fingerprint analysis were not available, making it difficult to gather conclusive evidence from the crime scene. The killer was meticulous in their efforts to avoid detection. The body was cleaned of all forensic evidence, and the murder itself appeared to be highly planned and methodical. Whoever killed Elizabeth Short seemed to know exactly how to avoid leaving traces. The intense media scrutiny surrounding the case likely hindered the investigation. False leads, sensational stories, and public pressure may have distracted detectives and led them away from important clues. With hundreds of suspects, many of whom were dead ends or gave false confessions, the LAPD struggled to focus on a single theory or individual. The investigation became bogged down in an overwhelming number of possibilities, with no clear answers. The Black Dahlia case remains one of the most infamous unsolved murders in American history. Elizabeth Short's tragic death has inspired countless books, films, TV shows, and even conspiracy theories, keeping her memory alive in the public consciousness. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of the case is that the killer was never brought to justice, and they may have walked the streets freely after committing such a horrific act. The Black Dahlia's murder serves as a stark reminder of how a life can be brutally taken, and despite all the advances in technology and investigative techniques, some cases remain shrouded in darkness. Elizabeth Short's story resonates with many because it taps into deep-seated fears of violence, of anonymity, and of unsolved mystery. Who was this young woman whose Hollywood dreams turned into such a nightmare? What forces led to her untimely and horrific death? And why has her case remained such an enduring mystery for so many decades? With the advances in forensic science, particularly DNA testing, there is always hope that cold cases like the Black Dahlia murder could one day be solved. In recent years, law enforcement agencies have solved long unsolved cases using modern techniques like genetic genealogy, which have cracked cases like that of the Golden State Killer. In 2013, the LAPD reopened the Black Dahlia case to review it with modern technology. However, no new suspects or evidence emerged, and the case remains officially unsolved. For many investigators and true crime enthusiasts, the hope remains that one day a breakthrough could finally bring the truth to light. Yet even with modern technology, there's always the possibility that the trail is too cold. With key suspects and witnesses long dead and little physical evidence remaining, some experts believe the case may never be solved, and the identity of the Black Dahlia's killer will remain forever in the shadows. The mystery of the Black Dahlia continues to captivate and terrify. It is a case that has inspired countless books, movies, and theories, each attempting to answer the question of who killed Elizabeth Short. But for every theory, there are only more questions, and the truth of what happened on that fateful January day in 1947 remains elusive. We may never know who murdered Elizabeth Short, but her tragic story will continue to serve as a reminder of the dark side of fame, the fragility of life, and the enduring mysteries that haunt us. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the unsolved mystery of the Black Dahlia.